been about a year since I installed our winch on our 2018 Polaris RZR XP 1000, so I thought I'd do a year in review and let you know what I love about this winch. So stick around. What's going on, adventurers? My name's Travis. Welcome back to another project. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about winches and specifically the MotoAlliance Viper Elite winch we installed on our 2018 Polaris RZR XP 1000. You can see here behind me. We've had this winch on our Polaris RZR for about a year now. We put it through its paces, so I thought I'd put together a video and explain what came with the kit, how I found the install process, and then just give you a year in review what I thought about using this winch. If you're new to the channel, we are all about projects that add adventure to your life. Anything that gets you up off the couch and out the door on your next adventure. If you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button. We'd really appreciate the support. And remember to click that little bell icon to be notified every time a new video drops. Putting a winch on your side-by-side, in my opinion, is pretty much a must. My wife and I do a lot of riding by ourselves, and being able to recover our machine when we get into those bad situations is really, really important. Modern side-by-sides are getting pretty big. Our XP 1000 behind us here weighs in at just under 2,000 pounds. You're not pushing that out by hand. Having a winch like our MotoAlliance Viper Elite just gives you that peace of mind to tackle some of that challenging terrain. There's so many times we've been riding and I figured, we come to a big mud hole. I figured there's no way we're not getting stuck. We just blaze right through. And then other times we've got stuck in things that I'm just amazed that we're even stuck there. The point is, you never really know when you're gonna get stuck. So having a good winch on your machine just makes sure that you don't get into a bad situation. So let's jump into this review. So let's take a look at what comes with this kit. If you're watching this video, I'm assuming that you're shopping for a winch for your machine, and maybe this is the first time you've ever purchased a winch, hooked one up. You're curious what the parts are and what you need. So I'll walk you through that. So very generally, you'll need a winch. So a good rule of thumb is you want a winch that can pull at least 2 times the weight of your machine. So this machine here, we've got about 2,000 pounds. We went with a 5,000 pound winch. The reason we did this is if you get really stuck, you want to be able to have all the pulling power that you'll need. If you're really bogged down, that could be a lot of weight for your winch. 2 times the weight of our machine is about 4,000 pounds, but we wanted that extra 1,000 pounds because we might have some extra gear in the machine, we might be sitting in the machine. Just gives us a good buffer on that 2 times rule. Once you have your winch, you'll need a winch plate. So a winch plate looks something like this. This is a ATV winch plate, so this is much smaller than the one that you would have on here. But basically, your winch will bolt to this plate, and this plate is what actually bolts to your machine. So when the winch is pulling, it's pulling off this plate. It gives it a really good platform to pull your machine out. Then on the front, this is where your fair lead connects. So this silver piece here, this is our fair lead. So you can see this one is nice and smooth. We have a synthetic cable on our winch, so you have this smooth fair lead. This just helps feed the winch cable into your winch nice. And if you have a metal steel cable, you'll have what looks like a series of 4 rollers on your fair lead. Then you'll need a wiring harness for your winch. So this is just all the wires to be able to hook it up to the battery, hook it up to your controls, and run it through your machine. Most kits, anytime you buy a winch, it'll come with the wiring harness. So the last thing you'll need is a way to control your winch. So you'll need a winch controller. Ours is wireless. It looks like this. This just allows us to wind the winch in and out. So we ordered our winch off of the MotoAlliance website. If you're thinking about ordering one of these winches, Their website is awesome. So you can input your machine, all the things that you would like, pick your winch, pick your options, and the kit comes to your door, has specific instructions for how to hook it up to your specific machine. The entire process was really, really easy. So I'll walk you through all the pieces that we got with our kit. So we decided to go with the MotoAlliance Viper Elite 5,000 pound winch. It's one of their top of the line winches. We decided to go with synthetic line. That's one of the really neat parts that you can choose on your order form there. You can actually color match your synthetic line to your machine. So we got our red synthetic line to match our red machine. Then you'll get your fair lead, just like this one. It's really nice. They have it laser engraved with Viper on the front. It's a cool touch. Then you've got your winch plate, your entire wiring harness, and they include tons of wire. There's tons of length, so you don't have to worry about reaching any of the terminals on your machine. It's really easy to hook up. Then finally, you'll get to choose how you want to control your winch. We went with the wireless remote option. I highly recommend this. It is so nice to have this wireless remote. The other option is to have a cabled winch controller as well. The final option is to get a switch to install in the cab of your RZR to control the winch as well. I'll get into that a little bit later in this video. So let's talk about the install process. Overall, it wasn't too bad. The directions that came with the kit were really good. They were specific to my machine, so they just walked you through the entire install process and had a few tips and tricks along the way. The only problem I ran into was the fitment of our winch plate. It was a little tricky to get into my machine. I don't know if maybe the holes weren't perfectly lined up. I could get 3 of the 4 bolts in really easy, and then the last bolt was pretty tricky to get installed. The directions recommend mounting the winch to the plate and then lifting it into place and bolting it into your machine. I wasn't able to do that. Trying to get this winch plate in, I had to just get the plate in, play around with the bolts. It took a little while, but I was finally able to get them all threaded and tightened down, and then I was able to lift the winch into place. Now there's lots of room below the winch, so I was able to bolt the winch down at that point. Other than that little hiccup, it went pretty well. The entire install process was pretty quick. After getting the winch plate installed with the winch, I hooked up our fair lead here. It was pretty easy to do. It's just a couple bolts here. One thing I had to do, which the directions made it really clear, was I had to do a little bit of trimming of the plastic here at the bottom of the fair lead. Your machine comes with a cover over this piece, so you remove the cover to install the fair lead, but there's a couple little tabs that stick up, so I just use a knife and cut through that. From there, you run your line through your fair lead and then attach your hook at the end. Then the wiring process was pretty easy. The directions walked you through every single step. You'll have to figure out a place to mount your contactor box. So this is the box where all the power goes through. It actually controls the switching of the winch on and off, as well as with us getting the wireless winch controller, you had to mount the wireless antenna box somewhere as well. So I mounted those all behind this dash panel here. It's just 2 bolts to remove, and all the extra wire and everything is coiled there. The reason I mounted it behind here is then it's behind the dash. It's a little bit more protected. If you mount it right here under the hood, it definitely gets quite a bit more muddy and everything, so you want to make sure you're protecting all those contacts. All the cables are nicely color coded, as well as the contactor box. All the posts have nice color coding on them, so it's really easy to just hook everything up in the correct order. Then to hook our winch up to power, we connected it to this bus bar that's located here. Most of the newer RZRs have this bus bar as a feature, but you have to get some cables to hook the battery up to this bus bar. It's available from Polaris. Luckily, when we bought our machine, it already had it on there. So you might want to take a quick look and just see if you have a red and black cable hooked up to this bus bar. This bus bar is super easy for hooking up lights, winches, all those things. You don't have to always run power all the way back to the battery. Then the nice part is you have a couple options for power off of this bar. You can have it so it's always powered, or there's an accessory post so it'll only be powered if the machine is turned on. So we have our winch hooked up to the accessory post. The reason being is we don't want to accidentally start using our winch when our machine is off. A winch of this size is gonna draw quite a bit of power and could easily drain your battery down. So it's an extra little safeguard for that. Then the last thing to hook up is something I mentioned a little earlier in the video, was the interior cab switch to wind your winch in and out. This is an option I initially didn't order with my kit, and I ended up regretting it. My initial concerns with this switch was it was a rocker style switch to wind your winch in and out, and you could accidentally bump it because it wasn't guarded. I thought if you bumped it, you might accidentally roll your winch into your machine and cause some damage. But once I got out with our winch and started using it, I noticed we had a pretty major flaw in our system. Without having that interior switch, we didn't have much of a backup. With having this wireless remote control, it works really well, but if the batteries die in this thing, you'd be completely out of luck. So I ended up purchasing a rocker switch for a winch off of Amazon and hooking it up, but the wiring process was a little tricky. The directions weren't great, and I ended up blowing a couple fuses by hooking up a couple wrong wires. Eventually, I was able to get it hooked up correctly and working, but for MotoAlliance's website, they have the option of getting this rocker switch right from the get-go, and the nice part is their setup has it all tying right into their wiring harness. You know, there's no wiring or anything. It's just a plug on the back of the switch. It would make it really, really easy to use. So if you're getting this wireless remote, I highly recommend getting that option. You know, if you have a wired remote, the power comes through the cable, so you don't have to worry so much with batteries and such, but having that extra backup is just so important with a winch. You won't realize your winch isn't working until you get stuck, so the more backups and contingency plans you have, the better. So finally, my thoughts on this winch after using it for an entire year. Overall, I really like this winch. MotoAlliance makes a really, really good product. Like I said, their ordering process and everything is just so easy. They make it easy to put together a kit, hook it up, and be out on the trail really fast. There's quite a few other winch manufacturers out there with big names, and I had looked at those ones as well, but like I said, I really like that you could just get a complete kit. There's no running around trying to get winch plates that hook up to your winch and different things like that. You just knew everything would fit together and hook up correctly. We got out riding a ton this year. We went on some awesome adventures. If you've been following the channel, you've probably seen some of the cool things we've done. And this winch has given us tons of confidence when you're out riding. You know, like I said, when you're in a new area, you don't really know where those bad spots are, you know, if a mud hole is really deep or if you might get stuck. So this helps give you the confidence to go out and explore. We ended up putting this winch through its paces quite a few times this year, and it worked really good. It pulled really strong, you know, it didn't sound like it was labored at any point. We got stuck in stuff like really deep, mucky, gross mud that was really sucking us in. This winch had no problems with that. At one point, we got into this mud hole it had these steep entrance and exits, and we just fell into this mud hole, just couldn't get out, and this winch had no problems pulling us up the steep exit to allow us to keep going down the trail and end up being able to do the full circuit and come back. One of the worst times we were stuck this year was earlier this spring. We're on the north side of a hill almost at the top, and there was some snow that had been sheltered from some trees right on the trail. It didn't look too deep, so I gave it a shot, and we ended up getting high centered and skidding onto this snow, and the snow ended up being about knee deep. It was a really challenging spot to be in because you couldn't really dig down. It would take tons and tons of digging to get the machine back down onto the ground, and we'd have to dig all the snow out behind it to be able to get out. So this winch was awesome. Luckily, there was a bit of a clearing to our right, so we were able to hook up to something and pull ourselves out and keep on going. The thing I really like with this winch is it's a pretty simple design. We had been looking at the Polaris brand winch, had some really cool features. It had a pressure plate on the fair lead so you couldn't overwind your winch. It also had 2 speeds so you could wind your winch in a little quicker. The issue I saw with this was there was just a lot more things to break. You know, you have lots of mud and grime and stuff getting in those things, and if they're not working correctly, you might not be able to have your winch working. So this design of this MotoAlliance Viper Elite, it's just a pretty straightforward winch, 1 speed, and it just works really well. And the nice part is you can customize this winch with some of those cool features. Like I said, you can get the wireless remote, synthetic line, all those kind of things. So you really aren't missing out on any features with this winch. One of the things I really like with this winch is the synthetic line. I highly recommend getting the synthetic line over the steel cable if you're looking at this winch. I've had steel cable winches in the past. They work well. The problem with them is they can fray over time. So when you're winding them, you really have to watch. You can get these burrs in your finger. It is just terrible if you catch your finger on one of them. The other aspect is they don't wind as nice. If you don't have constant tension on the steel cable, it just won't make a nice bunch on your winch, and you can get your winch kind of pinched in kind of funny ways, and it's just they're pretty difficult to deal with, I find. And finally, when you are winching, when that steel cable's under tension, if it does let go, you're unfortunate enough to have it let go, it can be a pretty dangerous situation. You know, you have this steel cable flying around and people can get injured. The benefit with having that synthetic line is the safety. If they break, they just fall right down. They're really easy to work with. You can run it through your hands. It's not too bad to handle. As for care with the synthetic cable, you do have to put a little more work into it. You know, you can't be putting the cable up and over a log and having it burn through the log there. You could damage your cable. And then finally, one thing that I like to do is every time I wash my machine, I'll pull the cable out and actually wash it with just the garden hose before I wind it back in. It just gets all that mud and grime off of it. You know, all those little bits of sand can slowly have sharp edges and slowly deteriorate your cable. So just keeping it nice and clean will make sure that it lasts a long time. With the synthetic line, one thing that we always bring with us is a tow strap. We use the tow strap to go around a tree. You can also buy a product called a tree saver. It's basically the same thing. You should be using them all the time. You don't want to be wrapping your winch cable around the tree because that can pinch the tree and just cause lots of problems for the tree. So bringing along a tow strap, you can connect your winch cable to that, and then you don't have to worry about damaging your synthetic line on the tree bark as the winch tightens down. Another thing I really liked with this winch is the wireless remote here. This thing is ridiculously handy. The times we've gotten stuck, I just keep it in the glove box, throw it in my pocket. You can get out, you know, unhook your winch so you can just pull the cable out, hook it all up, re-engage the clutch, and then you can be standing anywhere and operating your winch. You know, when you're stuck in a deep mud hole, you don't have to get your winch controller and plug it in and try and run the wire out and get to a good spot. This thing is just really handy, is really light, and sits in your pocket. One thing I've been meaning to put on this remote is a bright lanyard onto the end here. Once you get out of your machine, you know, you're throwing this around, moving some stuff around, it'd be really easy to have this fall out of your pocket and disappear in the mud. A cabled winch controller, you know, you have it plugged in, so it's really tricky to lose, and usually they're a big yellow box, so they really stand out, but this could be easy to lose, so that's one of my recommendations. Then my final recommendation is if you are ordering this kit, order that interior cab switch. Like I said, it's just a really nice backup to have, and ordering it right from the MotoAlliance website, it just connects really easily to the wiring harness. So that's it for this review. I'll post a link to MotoAlliance's website in the description below, so you can go check it out. They have really awesome winch kits, and then they also have some really cool other side-by-side products on there. If you have any questions about this review on the MotoAlliance Viper Elite winch or anything else you see on our machine here behind us, please post a comment below, and remember to like and subscribe and click that little bell to be notified every time we put a new video online. So that's it for this project, but I hope to see you back again really soon for another adventure project.